The following is my conversation with Richard Young, amateur musician, photographer, dog breeder, property manager, and old close friend of mine. Hope you enjoy it. Where are you from?
I am from originally the south coast of Newfoundland, and it's a small town, small island off the island of Newfoundland. So you got to go by boat to get to Newfoundland, and then you got to drive and then take another boat to get to the island we're from.
Okay.
Yeah, very small, very secluded.
Interesting. So what brought you to Ontario, so far inland here?
Well, it's a bit of a long story, but well, I mean, not really. My brother and my sister were living there at the time. I was in college back east. My wife and I got pregnant. I basically ran some numbers and thought college wasn't going to work for 4 years with a kid on the way. My dad got sick at the time, and so my brother and sister came back to see him. And I told him what was going on, and my brother said, well, I can get you a job tomorrow if you want in Ontario. And so he did, and here I am. So I left there. I was in school on the Monday. The following Monday, I was in Cornwall.
Okay, and what was your first job?
The first job I had was actually construction. It was, we were living in Cornwall. We were working in Toronto. So we'd commute for the week. So we'd go up Sunday night, work all day Monday for the week, and then come back Friday and spend the weekend at home.
Okay. Was Cornwall the first choice, or did you do some research to get there? Or
I did no research. I made no plans, and this all happened within a day, basically. And my wife didn't even really know until I told her we're moving to Ontario.
Just completely uproot and just go.
We left the East Coast. We had a 6-month-old baby and $1,000 in our pocket.
Wow. And how old were you?
21.
21, and already married with a child.
Not married, but pretty much married. But at that time, we were planning a marriage. But
as married as you can be without a party and a ring.
Exactly that. No certificate, but everything else.
Yeah. So what have you noticed different about Ontario?
Everything. It's a different world. And especially because Newfoundland is such a unique and culturally different place on its own anyways. When you go to the secluded parts of Newfoundland where I'm from, out in the Cove essentially, because the cities in Newfoundland are pretty much the same as Cornwall, right? You go to Cornbrook, St. John's, Gander, they're cities. You have malls, it's cities. Mm-hmm. Where I come from, there's none of that. It's a throwback.
So it's a little further detached.
Much further detached. Even though driving time is only 2 or 3 hours to the nearest city, in terms of the differences, it's so far beyond. The seclusion alone, the lifestyle, the food, the music, the way of life is so much different. Everything is different. There's nothing the same. When I moved here, I had zero familiarities. There was nothing I could relate to, really, honestly. The language was different. Newfoundlanders, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Newfoundlanders have their own unique way of expressing themselves.
You've adapted quite well over the years.
It's been 30 years and it's still a struggle. But I mean, everything is different. There was work wherever you wanted at that time. I moved there in the late 80s, early 90s, so Cornwall still had some thriving manufacturing and stuff like that. So you could pretty much go place to place and get a job, which is, that was new in itself.
I think that everywhere is slowly going away, moving away from that 40-hour a week more to a kind of specialized, super specialized gig culture.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, a lot of contractual stuff more than, you said, the traditional 40 hours. But
because we're getting robots to do the 40 hours, right?
Right.
and then we just contract out some repair guys to fix the robots.
That's all. Yeah. Why not, right? I mean, robots don't call in sick, but that takes away from jobs and stuff. So that's not always a good thing. It's jobs are good for the economy, but there's so much difference. The food is probably the first thing that comes to mind. I think every culture has their own delicacies and comfort foods. And Newfoundland is no different. And actually, Newfoundland is probably far different because everything in Newfoundland is different as far as food goes. So there's some culture shock for sure. So in less than 2 weeks, I went from small town, rural, isolated Newfoundland to downtown Toronto. And
quite a culture shock for sure.
To say that it was eye-opening is a bit of an understatement.
Now, when you say like everything's different, nothing's familiar, the first thing that comes to mind is the food. Like, is that because it's obviously right next to the ocean, right. So you're probably eating more fresh, real food, yes. Things that aren't probably less. Obviously, I don't think there's a Walmart on the island.
Not the island I grew up on. There was no Walmart. There was basically like a country corner store, right? There was 2 or 3 corner stores, and whatever they had, that's what you get. So
yeah, but you weren't finding a Swanson dinner.
No. So, but I mean, no, it was the food is there was more homemade foods. There was more home recipes and stuff like that.
When I think of Newfoundland, it seems like everything is more. It just seems like home. It seems like everything is more homey in the sense of the term.
It's more real, I find. The people are more factual, more
maybe more appreciative.
Yeah, more realistic, I find. More in touch with the culture and there's more appreciation of the roots and
yes.
of the culture itself. So there's a lot of pride. I think all cultures have a certain, I think whether you're talking Italians, French, Germans, whatever, I think everybody has a lot of pride in their culture to a point. I think Newfoundland is probably...
Well, and there's that pride of independent, being so connected to the environment, being so community based.
Yeah, well, because, you rely on it so much. So because of that, anything you rely on, you get to be close to, right?
Yeah, and I mean, all of that falls together. The fresh food, Interesting. Now, the biggest thing about Newfoundland is the people. It seems like it's all one big family. It's all one big party. And
definitely a party.
Is that my naive outside view, or
no? I mean, well, a little bit, but I mean,
I'm romanticizing a bit here.
A little bit, but it stands up, though. I mean, the people in Newfoundland are unlike anybody you've ever really met. I mean, if you go back to Newfoundland, you're really gonna enjoy talking to people, meeting people, and it's a different experience. I mean, you have troublemakers wherever you go. Newfoundland is no different. We have definitely got our share of undesirables.
But there seems to be a level of outgoingness and general acceptance.
Willingness to not only comply, but to just everybody gets along. It's a Newfoundland thing,
Coming from like such a tight community to such a big area, are the people different in Ontario?
Yes,
the people must be different.
Yes.
Why do you think that is? Does the
numbers.
Geography make the people?
No, I think it's more numbers. I just think bigger places, people disconnect. I think it's simple as that. And I think, a large portion of Newfoundland is isolated, small towns. There's a lot of
so again,
more towns.
of that independence and more of that appreciation.
Exactly that, Yeah. So you're your own little group, and if you have a group of 5, you get to know each other a lot better than if you're a group of 100. And so I think it's just simply numbers and population. Because St. John's, there's 2 Newfoundlands really. There's the small towns, and then there's the cities. And the small towns or the coves, you're from the bay.
And that's primarily where the stereotypes come from, right?
That's exactly where stereotypes come from. Because everybody thinks of Newfoundland, they think of the rural. Then when they go down for the first time, they visit St. John's or something like that, they're looking around and go, oh, I could be in Toronto here. You wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go there and stay in a Hilton.
Yeah, you're right.
kind of defeats the point.
Because exactly, and that's what I tell everybody, you got to get off the beaten path. If you're just going to go down, you should go down and see St. John's. It's a great city. It's culturally full. The food, the music, George Street. For those that don't know, George Street in St. John's is it's in the World Book of Guinness Records. It has the most bars in the world on any one street. And St. John's is also a university town. It's actually got the biggest university east of Montreal. And there's a thing called the pub crawl.
Okay.
And it's a rite of passage. You go to university in St. John's, you go to George Street, and you start at the base, and you see how far you get before you had to be dragged out of there by the ankles.
Okay, so I've heard that term before, pub crawl. Is that where it originated?
It is. I think. Well, I don't know if we invented it, but we pretty much perfected it.
Not invented, but definitely perfected.
There you go.
So what do you do?
When? Where?
I love asking that question exactly like that.
No.
Because, yeah, exactly, right? When? And at what time of day?
Yeah.
Right. So you do a lot of different things.
Yeah. I got a few irons in the fire, for sure. Not as much as I'm getting older and slowing down a little bit, but yeah, I always dabble.
So aside from a regular 9 to 5, or in this case, 7 to 3, or
7 to 7,
7 to 7, whatever it is that keeps the ball rolling, keeps the wheel turning. You've got seems like everything to do with media is a hobby of yours.
Yeah, yes and no. It just seemed to happen by chance. It wasn't planned or anything like that. But yeah, media, I'm definitely, I'm all over Facebook. YouTube is not as much, but it's there.
Now, when I say media, I mean in the sense of content. You're producing live streams on your own, doing weekly, sometimes more, sometimes less.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
I don't know. I can't count how many.
It's been a few, yeah, to say the least.
So I mean, the production there. We've worked on a couple albums together, a couple CDs.
Yeah.
You do as well. Well, there's the video production that goes along with it, as well as photography.
Yes,
I remember a phase of photography.
Still dabble a little bit. It's kind of fallen by the wayside because time is hard to come by sometimes, and
Now, is photography something you find you need to invest time in these things, or is it just something fun that you kind of come back to when needed? Or
yeah, it's both. You can stand up to both arguments there. I mean, it's definitely a fallback when you want a little change of pace. I grab the camera, go for a walk, do a little bird watching, perhaps. Mm-hmm. Who knows? A little bit of wildlife, and it also comes in handy when you're doing production work. So you got to know a camera is definitely handy. You know yourself. The more you know about your equipment.
Yes.
The better it is, right?
Yes. So how did you learn
photography?
Yeah. Any courses, or is it just online, or just trial and error?
Well, it was, again, kind of accidental. I didn't plan on getting into photography. I bought a camera. I don't remember the reason I bought a camera. It was a cheap camera. It was a $100 camera. And I remember I took one picture, and it was of a flower, of all things. It was a daisy, I remember. And it was great. It came out great. It was a great picture. So I thought I had some kind of talent. I didn't at the time, but I convinced myself so. So I thought I'd take a course. So I went online and found a discount site, and I got a $1,000 photography course for something like $69.
Cool.
I took the course, learned how to use the camera, and it turned out fairly well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just trying it.
Then it was just getting out there and doing it. There's nothing like experience to sharpen the skills, right? I mean, you learn all the books you want, but until you apply it in the field, and I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir because that's exactly how you operate yourself. Mm-hmm. But photography is a great outlet. It's and it covers so many facets. You can do so much with it. Hobby, professional, weddings, wildlife, music. You can, it's pictures are everywhere.
It's definitely a useful skill.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, every phone now, like my phone's got, I don't know, 3 cameras in the back of it.
Yeah.
How much art is left in photography?
None. I mean, that's not really true. There's plenty of photographers with skill that will blow your mind, will smoke you away. It's just there's definitely an art there, but for the everyday phone user,
but it seems that
it's taken away. It's watered it down some. It's like anything else. Once you exploit something to a certain level, it gets watered down. But the cameras today or the phones with the cameras today are amazing. They do a really good job. I still prefer a a camera per se. I like Nikon to be exact.
and knowing how to use it,
that's
and knowing
thing.
the features you want is what probably makes you. But for the average person, you can take pretty darn good.
You can
pictures
take really good pictures with a camera.
With just
there are things you can't do, but I mean, there's certain things you need a camera for to manipulate it. It's easier, but photography. Nothing speaks more sometimes than a really sharp picture. Pictures speak 1,000 words, right? And I definitely believe that. I love photography. I still love my camera. I don't get to enjoy it as much as I used to. But
what do you use as a camera?
I use a Nikon. It's a D3200. It's an entry level camera for most folks. I mean, it's about a $700 camera.
Okay,
which is low end for a camera. It's like guitars, and you can spend as much as you want.
Low end for a real camera, high end for a hobbyist, right?
Right, exactly that, right? So you know where I am with that. So but
now, are there any particular features, features, I guess, of that particular camera or cameras in general that somebody starting up, like a novice or an amateur, might look to? Like, what do you look for in a camera?
It really depends what you're using it for. The first and foremost thing I bought that specific camera for was the megapixels. So it was a 24 megapixel camera at the time. It was the only one that you could buy at the time that without spending $2,000 on a camera. There's lots out there that the pros use, but for an entry level, you couldn't buy a 24.
For us normal people,
right? So, normal,
normal's a relative term.
We'll
it's a relative term
for now. But no, it was all about the megapixels. I'm a numbers guy. I like big numbers, and so I was impressed by the reading, and that's why I bought it. And I still really prefer that. I had a Canon. I prefer the Nikon. I prefer the Nikon because I learned on the Nikon. I'm more comfortable with it lately. So
now, do you get into interchangeable lenses and things like that? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's like guitars, right? They all have their own personality and uses.
It's a tool. Yeah.
It's a tool. Prime lenses. Macro lenses. I get into macro photography because there's something really cool about seeing something really, really close up.
Yeah, I'm asking this because I have no idea.
Okay. But my favorite lens was a 300 millimeter lens. It's a lens that you could zoom in to pull in wildlife because you can't get close to it most times.
Okay.
You could also, if you want to step back a little bit, you could zoom in on flowers and things close up. So it's not intended for that, but it's like anything else. You can kind of manipulate things to make it work for what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was very versatile. It was my go-to lens.
Okay.
I did.
So it's a 300 mil, and it's got a what time optical zoom, or
it's got the 300 is 30 times.
Oh,
so
okay.
300 just divide by 10 to get your optical.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so your zoom. But the zoom became less and less important. Unless I was out doing wildlife, but I did a lot of
you're not going to climb a tree to get that bird. Yeah,
that's right. Exactly. Well, you say that. Funny story. Well, maybe not so much funny as ridiculous, but I had found an Oriole's nest, and I love color and I love texture in photography. It's the two things I look for most, and I find that really makes it pop. Picture pop. Is color first and texture second. And so I was walking, and I happened to see an Oriole, and so, it'd be cool, man, if I could get a picture of that. They're really orange and black, really stands out, really sharp in nature. And so I saw it fly into a tree, and I kind of followed it around for a little bit. Well, I ended up climbing that tree, and I sat in that tree for about 4 hours to get the picture I wanted of an Oriole feeding it. So it's a really cool picture. It's one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken. It's the mother feeding the baby birds, and it's got a beak right in the throat kind of thing, just like you'd see, And it was a great shot. Nearly broke my back, but you do what you got to do, right?
So you got a new respect for National Geographic photographers.
I'm telling you, I'm sure they've got lenses big enough that they can zoom in close enough without getting in the tree. But
I'm sure they've spent a few nights in a tree at the same time.
But I mean, musicians, photography, any kind of artsy stuff, you do what you have to do to justify the canvas.
Strange things happen when you become obsessed.
Crazy, crazy. Yeah, I've been out in lightning storms to get a picture of lightning, basically standing there with a lightning rod, it's a camera and on a tripod.
It's mostly plastic.
It's mostly plastic, but, but lightning shots and things like, slow motion photography and it just adds another aspect to pictures.
Now, what I've always wondered with photography, and I mean, I've taken pictures before.
Yeah.
I mean, never to that extent, but just how often, aside from looking through a camera, do we stop and stare at a tree? How often do you stop and look at that blade of grass?
I do that. I do that because of photography, though. But prior to that, yeah, you're right. You know, there's so much things you just
forces you to be in the moment,
to see,
to
be aware,
to take in what's around.
You're very much if you have a camera in your hand, you're very in tune with detail. That's for sure. It opens your eyes, and it was good for that. You know, and photography's not hard, right? It's just you kind of just got to learn to use your camera a little bit, and it doesn't take a lot of knowledge. I mean, if you're going to buy a camera, and if you're going to spend $200-$400 on a camera, and you're just going to buy it and put it on auto and just go around taking pictures, well, you may as well just buy a $50 camera. They all do the same thing on auto.
Okay.
Some do it a little bit better than others, but essentially they do the same.
So I may as well just keep using my phone.
Keep using your phone. That's exactly what that is. It's a phone. So my camera's never seen auto. It's always on manual. So you fine tune it the way you want it.
Well, because you buy it because of the features and because of the adjustability.
Absolutely that. Yeah. So learning to use a camera, and it's not that difficult for the basic stuff, and it'll improve your pictures 1,000-fold for sure. I love photography. Now you get me excited. You're starting to get me back into it a little more. I might go and take the camera out. We'll see.
Now, is there, if for anybody interested, and for myself later on, is there any way do you have any way that anybody could see any of your photography? Anything posted online?
Oh, yeah. I mean, most photographers are proud of their good shots. And I'm that guy anyway. I post them good and bad because I feel, putting the bad ones out there make you a little bit more vulnerable, but it also makes you appreciate the better ones more. And you can also grade yourself that way, Well, and you start off and you post a picture this week, and 2 years from now you're still taking pictures, then your pictures have likely improved quite a bit, and you can go back and look and see where you've come.
Yeah, yeah. Humans are messy. There's no there's no need to hide it.
And some of us, guilty, are messier than others. That's for sure.
Oh, jeez.
Photography is a great hobby. I love it. And photography and music, go hand in hand quite a bit, and or they can at least. I don't really use photography in my music much, but you could. I mean, video is a little different beast, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you took the pictures for your album covers, things like that, or yeah. So I mean, it is useful.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
I remember putting our EP together with my band Erebus. We'd had to pick the day, and you have a photo shoot, and
sure,
but things you don't think of that need to be done.
Yeah.
And when you don't have a record label,
yeah,
making those appointments for you,
scramble a little bit. You learn to be versatile and quick on your feet. That's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, geez. Well, I think this is a perfect segue into music and what you do musically. So how did that start? This Facebook Live phenomena,
yeah, okay.
that captivated half of the East Coast.
You're really way too kind. And I'm not being false. That's not false modesty. I'm being honest. You're way too kind.
I'm exaggerating quite a bit, but no. It's something you obviously enjoy, something you've been doing regularly, and something that's gotten really positive feedback.
Yeah, I mean, music it's a little bit of a long story, but I'll give you the meat and potatoes of it, and cut out the long, boring parts. But essentially, I had heard my wife sing one day, and I thought, it's better than average. I mean, no superstar. I mean, but I thought she could really sing. I said, geez, that's really good. And I had a guitar in my house that was given to me by a professional. He played for Terry Clark. She's a country singer, Canadian country artist. He toured the world. They went through Europe, they went China, Australia. They're world renowned. Him and I grew up together in that small town back east. He was a great musician. He was playing at the National Arts Centre one night in Ottawa, and he called me up. Some tickets. Come on up. So we went up, and I said, well, fair play being what it is, you gave me tickets. We can cook a home meal for you, the East Coast food. I know he's on the road and would appreciate it. So he said, oh, man, yeah. So he came down for a meal. And while he was in the house, I had a guitar that I had owned when I was about 14 that he tried to teach me to play guitar on. Now, I don't envy is a task, because to teach me anything, first of all, I'm stubborn, and anyways, it's a long story. But so he saw that guitar from our childhood, and he goes, I can't believe you still have that, because my father gave me the guitar. My father had recently passed away, so basically I was just dragging the thing around for a keepsake. It hadn't seen or been played in 30 years. I don't know. It's been sitting there. The strings were 1.5 inches off the neck. It was a $100 guitar then, and it was, got wet. And anyways, so I had the guitar. He saw the guitar, and he goes, man, I can't believe you still have that thing. He said, I'd love to own that. He said, that's the only guitar left from my childhood. I said, Craig, you know what? Take it. I'm only keeping it because Dad gave it to me. It's a keepsake. It'll never be used. I know you'll take care of it. Mm-hmm. So he was living in Nashville at the time. He took it, restored the guitar, hung it on his music in the studio. It's still there. It was there until he moved back to the East Coast. So I gave him the guitar. So the next time he came to Ottawa, he called me up again. He said, I got something for you. And so we go up, watch the show again. And after the show, we went back, met the band on the bus. We did a little tour backstage and stuff. It was pretty cool. Met all the boys. And he handed me a guitar. He said, I want to give you this. I said, what am I going to do with the guitar? I said, I don't play guitar. He said, I'll take it anyway. You gave me a guitar. I want to return the favor. I want to give you a guitar. He says, it's a good guitar. He said, there's a small split. I had it repaired. Sounds great. And it did. A great guitar. Probably the best guitar I ever played. But anyway, so that guitar sat in my house for probably 10 years.
You know what kind it was? Was it
It was a Simon & Patrick.
A Simon & Patrick.
Yeah, a great guitar. Phenomenal sound. So it sat collecting dust, and it had to be 10 years or close to it. And then when I heard my wife singing that one day, I said, well, by God, I'm going to learn to play guitar.
Do you remember what she was singing?
What's that?
Do you remember the song
I do, actually. It was a song by Carleen Carter called Every Little Thing.
Okay.
A little pop song. A little toe tapper. And I thought she smacked it out of the park. She did a great job with it. And I'm just tapping my toe going, yeah, baby, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm gonna learn to play guitar. I'm going to go get Craig's guitar, and I'm going to learn. So we all know how that goes. I did manage to learn a half dozen chords. To say it's rough is a minor, major understatement. My guitar playing is barely functional, but it does enough to do what we do.
It does. It was enough. It's enough to convince Barb to sing,
which was what I was getting at. So.
Which was the really the only goal, right?
It was, because
initially
Barb was singing, but not in front of anybody, including myself.
Oh.
So when I did finally learn 3 or 4 chords, and I wanted her to sit down and sing with me, she wouldn't sit down and sing with me. So that took another couple of months of coming. So I'd be playing in front of my computer, playing along with a song, and she'd be out in the kitchen singing. So that was kind of how and then she kind of gradually got closer and closer. Anyway, so we did one song, and it was, again, that song, the Carleen Carter song. And we posted it on Facebook, and we got an offer to play at a bar. And we knew one song. And that's what I told them. I said, well, we can play, but we can play one song all night. But it was really funny. But anyway, so it kind of went from there. That's how it all started. And we got more and more songs in our repertoire, and I learned a few more chords. And I'm still very, very rough. I play rhythm only. I can't play lead. I'm too old to learn that, I think, anymore. But, a little bit of rhythm. And when you have a very pretty lady and with a good voice out front, most people don't really even know the guitar player's even there.
I can relate with that.
Right? Exactly. So, again, preaching to the choir.
I have a pretty little woman who's got a good voice who stands up front. Right. I can make all the mistakes in the world. And
I hide behind her every song we do. There's a mistake or two in there. So
I smile and nod, and she does it.
Yeah. So finally we got planned a few songs. I'll say a dozen or dozen and a half songs. And I said to her, I said, your mom and dad's getting older. They're not going to be around forever. And they've really never heard you sing. You should let me post a song online. Well, there's another 2-month argument. Some convincing, bribing, and threatening and stuff. But so finally we put a song online, like I said. The mom and dad saw it. A few people saw it, and it kind of rolled on from there. We got a few offers here and there for, can you play at our wedding, or can you play at our backyard party, or whatever. You know how it goes. You're a musician. You know how the gigs roll. Mm-hmm. And so we got a few offers, and it kind of snowballed there. So we decided to go live because people wanted to watch. Want to know if they could watch us live, and so that took some equipment and some learning. Finally we got it to go live, and I've been adjusting the sound, which is where you come in, by the way, for a year now. And we've gotten a small following. We get 400 or 500 viewers, I guess, probably most nights. We've had as many as 1,800. That happened only once. We've had a few times it's been over 1,000 people watching. views, but at the end of the week we usually get 30 or 50,000 views.
Well, I was going to say there's been a few where by the time I look at it, and 17,000 views.
Yeah. Usually by the next day there's about 20,000 views. Then it slows down, but 30,000 views a week probably. And so it just kind of turned into a thing. And now we look forward every chance we get to going back east to do some gigs. We did a mini tour last year. We did 6 shows in the East Coast last year. We had a couple of bookings in Fort McMurray last year. They got canceled due to the virus, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So things were ramping up a little bit. It's not something that's ever we're gonna make it a living at, but it's a great hobby. Keeps me out of trouble most of the time. And, puts a little extra jingle in the pocket once in a while. So what's wrong with that, right?
It supports the habit, right?
Yeah, exactly. Supports the habit. Just barely, but yeah.
Cables don't get cheap.
Cables don't get cheap.
Yeah.
I must have $1,000 in cables easily.
Yeah, we just lost $30 setting up for this.
I know, yeah. They're not made to last anymore.
So do you, now I know you just said there's not really looking to do anything big with it. Are you looking to do anything with it? Have you thought about doing any original stuff? Any?
Yes and no. I mean,
if the right producer came around to prod?
So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. So, yeah, just that, right? On our own, no. With a little bit of help and encouragement and maybe knowledge, yeah, maybe. So, I'm eventually going to put it out there that I'm going to ask for people that have gotten their own songs that might want somebody to do it for them, like writers that don't really sing or play much.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I know a few friends that do that, and they just kind of tinker around with the guitar and come up with a song, and it's a great song, and they want something done with it.
Yeah.
So
there's definitely a market for that.
There definitely is. And so I'm going to maybe put a word out for the more artsy and creative people with the pen. And if I feel I find a song or two that I really like, we've actually already done 1 or 2.
Okay.
There's a young fellow back east, about your age. He's got a band. It's called Jack Daniels Band. Newfoundland's full of bands. Newfoundland, there's probably more musicians per capita in Newfoundland. I don't know if it's the seclusion, the isolation, or what it is, but Newfoundland is full. And I mean chock full.
Yeah, well, I think you got
talent.
offered more gigs in Newfoundland last year than there are bars in Ontario.
I don't know. I don't know if there's that many, but we got offered quite a few gigs. Not last year, but the year before. Because COVID shut everything down last year. But yeah, it's so the Jack Daniels Band. His name is Nick Strickland. He wrote a song, and then so we contacted him. He let us use the song on Facebook. We haven't recorded it anywhere yet. But another example, back east, there was a band as well. And they were really popular. They were actually a comedy act. Started out as musicians, but were funnier than they were talented.
Okay.
They were all 3 teachers, actually. And it was the group called Buddy Wassesney.
Okay.
Which is a Newfoundland term. But anyway, they went real big. They went national. Made it really big. They did a song, and we asked permission. They gave us, and we recorded that one. Okay. You recorded that one for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
On their first album. So.
Oh, I didn't even realize.
Yeah. So we've done a few songs by other people that, originals that people didn't mind once they seen what we do, saw that, Barb can actually not massacre the thing. And I think that's the thing with most artists, right? They don't want to let someone use a song if they're just going to butcher the thing, right?
Yeah. As somebody who writes music, now, I mean, I'm fortunate I play what I write.
Right.
But yeah, I get upset when I go to change something I write. Yeah. It's internal. I feel like I wrote it. It has to be this way. Make it work. Yeah. And so I wrote it. I can change it.
Right.
But it's this weird attachment thing.
And a lot of people don't like messing with their music, right? Because so a better example of that, another song on our first album that you recorded with us, there's a gentleman called Murray Porter, and he's a native gentleman. He's got connections to Cornwall. I don't know if his roots are here, but he lives near Hamilton area, I believe, is where he was. He wrote a song called "Baby You're My Good Thing."
Okay.
And we fell right in love with that song. Okay. And it was kind of our theme song for a year, more or less. So we wrote him and asked permission, and sure enough, he gave us permission to record it. And so we've done things like that. I'm not much of a writer myself, I don't think. I've not really tried. But so I might give it maybe co-write it with somebody one day. Maybe Ryan. Like come over and sit down and write something. We'll see. But yeah, so, doors always open.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so open-minded and See what happens, right? Just roll with the punches.
That's how you got this far, right?
Pretty much. That's
Just
exactly.
Sprinkle a little bit of gear on there and just see what happens.
See what happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works out, and other times not so much, right? So that's just how it goes.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely a huge connection with all of that, the video production, the music. Now you use software as well when you play, right?
Yes. We're not very traditional, and there's a couple reasons for that.
Considering you play really a lot of traditional folk style music, you play it in a very untraditional
it's
way.
Kind of a mess. Yeah. So I love the acoustic guitar. By itself, on its own, it stands up. It's a great sound. I just love acoustics. But I find it's not always practical in a crowded room. If you're in a bar, 100 people, you can fill the room with the sound, and you can do it properly, and it sounds great. But I just find if you had a full accompaniment,
it's not the same energy.
It's not the same. Not the same energy.
I do both.
Yeah,
and it's weird.
It is.
You go into it with a completely different mindset. I know the first couple gigs that we did that was like that was at actually a golf and country club. And it was like a steak and dinner. They had a weekend steak and dinner thing, so they hired us for the weekend. And it was the weirdest thing. Nobody claps after anything. You don't talk to anybody. You finish a song, you sip your wine, you sit it back down, you start the next song. And I almost thought that people didn't like us until the end of the night or in between sets when we're walking. Oh, that sounded really good. Oh, I really like that song. I said, okay, they were paying attention. But it's this huge
every venue
disconnect.
is different, yeah.
And then we were used to playing a bar where if they weren't heckling you, then they didn't know you existed. Right. So you're expecting that back and forth.
Right.
You want to talk to them. You want to get them going. You want to make jokes and stuff.
Right.
To this completely other side where with just the acoustic, it's literally background noise.
It is.
I don't want to say noise, music.
Yeah.
But it's just in the background.
Right. Yeah. So the thing with that is, once we played our first gig in a bar, I realized we're going to need some sound. We need music.
So when you first started playing, you didn't use software.
No.
Okay.
Right at the very get-go. Well, that's not entirely true.
Or I shouldn't say software. I should say backing tracks.
Right.
Or accompaniment tracks.
I find it much easier to play if I can hear the song. If I'm not the only instrument, is the way I like it. If I'm playing with a band, I find it much easier to play with, to follow a band than to be the only guy there, kind of thing. So I find it was a teaching tool for me at first, backing tracks. Because I would pick up the guitar and I would play on YouTube. I'd play a song and I'd play along with it on YouTube just because it's easier for me to follow the sound. So then when Barb started singing, we couldn't really use YouTube because the singing's on YouTube, and so it didn't make much sense. We end up, and we have a young gentleman in the Philippines that creates backing tracks for us, and he's amazing. He's incredible.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you find him? Just online?
Google. Yeah. So I found a site where people contract out a skill. That's called Fiverr.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard of it.
Yeah. So you go on there, and I just put on Fiverr what I wanted, and this guy came back, and I said, well, let's try it out. Give me a price. I'll try it out, see what your work is like. And his work was incredible. His work was professional, and he could do a backing track in one day.
Interesting.
And deliver it, and for a good we'll
have to talk about this a little bit afterwards off too. But I came across, or actually my drummer came across this software, this app.
Okay.
That separates
voice from
everything, and you choose and you level it. So it's AI essentially, this AI algorithm. That analyzes.
Sure.
I'll have to look up the name.
Yeah. I could use that actually,
but I don't want to, cost this guy a job.
Well, I'm probably not going to hire him.
But there might just be an app for that. Yeah. So I know I've seen it years ago with software when I was working at the music store, And back then it was a super high-tech, expensive software.
Yeah.
And apparently it works really well. Now he uses it to take drums out of a track.
So he could play. He's a drummer.
He's a drummer,
right.
yeah. So he was using it to make backing tracks that he could drum along with,
right.
and using it actually to make backing tracks for his students to play along with.
Right.
So when his students are learning a song. But he had mentioned it to me last week. Yeah, so I'll need to find the name of that.
Yeah, because
sure.
I've tried a few and tried are really not very good. It changes the whole sound of the music. It's very tinny. It doesn't only remove the voice, but it removes some of the bass.
Well, yeah, because there's ways to do it with EQ.
Right.
And it's not, I shouldn't say there's ways to do it with EQ because it doesn't do the job properly, right? That's like saying my arm hurts, so cut my arm off.
Yeah.
Well, it's solved, but
Kinda.
it's not really solved.
Yeah.
You end up bastardizing the song in the process because you can scoop out the frequencies that are mainly where the vocal sits.
Right.
But there's also other portions of other instruments that are sitting in that frequency range too.
And so there's always a friendly fire, right? And it really does. You can, if you have an ear, you can really notice the difference.
So taking out the highs of a vocal, you also lose the highs of some of the cymbals.
Right.
You lose the snappiness of the snare drum.
So it works. It's okay. I find that kind of thing is okay for practice around the house.
Yes.
If you need a track you can't find, and so it's okay for that.
Rehearsal is one thing, but you're not going to use it on stage.
No, that's right. And so that's where this kid in the Philippines came. He's a sound engineer. He's educated. He's bright. He knows what he's doing. I think he was born to do this. So he did. So East Coast music, traditional East Coast music, is very much like Irish music. Irish pub music, that kind of thing. Very similar, but not popular as far as the masses are concerned. And so to find those tracks anywhere is almost impossible. So you have to have pretty much all of them made. So out of necessity, I found this guy and worked out really well. So we now have probably, I'll say, a little over 500.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, tracks that we rely on. Maybe a little bit more, but somewhere around there.
So with that many tracks, now I'm going to go on a limb and maybe assume that you don't choose from that 500 every gig. Do you have like a for a live stream, do you know what you're going to be doing on the live stream? You pull out, okay, we'll choose from these 50 songs this week, or do you just have 500 and as they call them, you just play them?
Yeah, it's different every week. It really, and the venue is different, right? So what we do on Facebook is completely different from what we do in a bar. So we play at a bar, we have
you'll make a set list.
We make a set list.
You'll have,
and the set list changes, but not a lot. We have, the meat and potatoes. You have your 25 or 30 regular go-to songs that you're really comfortable with. And then depends on the age group of the people that you think you're going to get and you're playing to. So you kind of adjust your
that's one thing I've found so hard to do. I spent a lot of my teenage years and early 20s being so detached from popular culture.
Yeah. I've known you since you were a kid, and I can attest.
So now looking, I have no idea what people like.
He's not lying.
At least not what the average,
right.
It's hard for me to look and say, oh, that's a group of 30-year-olds.
Right.
They're going to like this.
Right. And that's really hit and miss, honestly.
And I find that's a skill on its own.
Oh, it is. It really is. We're kind of lucky that way in that the large percentage of our followers are older. And so that really narrows down, we know we're not going to be playing.
Now, are most of your followers from the East Coast? Or are they sprinkled everywhere? Or a bit of both?
Most they're from the East Coast, is a fair statement. Or if not from the East Coast, then they were born and raised in the East Coast and live elsewhere. We have a smattering of fans around the world, not a lot. We have a couple of Australians come in on a regular basis.
Is it fair to say that that's probably where the big numbers started?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, without a doubt.
Just that
unquestionably.
That unquestionable, fierce
loyalty. That's it. Yeah, we love these guys. They're from Newfoundland. They're ours. Yeah, go team.
Yeah.
So, and of course they share, and eventually, a few people see it, and then a friend of a friend kind of thing, and then so we have a couple Americans.
Well, and then it's actually good too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you get a lot of people supporting it and sharing it, and it's not shitty, it's easy to snowball a little bit.
That's a good point because if you want to be popular, and not that we got into this to be popular, but if that's your goal, you have to be decent at it. You need some polish. I'm lucky. My wife's voice and looks is all we really need. And so, I don't really have to be there.
I've said it many times. I've said it to her. I've said it to you. She's one of the most consistent singers I've ever worked with.
She makes very few mistakes. She is technically, very, very good. For two reasons. I think you're born with some of that ability is born into you at some point, and she works hard at it. She takes it serious, and she practices, and she watches herself, and she corrects her mistakes, and I don't. So she tells me when she's ready, and I pick up the guitar and a bottle of wine, and we play, and that's usually how that goes. So like I said, I'm just there for the muscle. I know it. I'm good with it. It works. It's not for everybody, but we have fun with it. And
well, you're the roadie who gets to hang out on stage, right?
Perfectly, right? So, as you get older, we've been together since we were kids. As you get older, you struggle to find things you have in common, as hobbies and interests go. The husband usually goes one way, the wife does everything the other way. Well, this kind of brought us together in the other direction. So, it keeps us, it's something for us that we can do, relate to together. So it's always a good thing.
Well, and that has to be, that's an interesting thing when you get together so young, because how do you predict you're going to be sharing goals? How do you predict you're going to be...
Right, you can't really.
That's something you can't force yourself to share a life goal.
No.
That's something you can't just say, okay, I'm going to do it. No, that's...
No, and I couldn't agree more. And we've been together since we were really young. Barb was 13 and I was 15 when we first date, if that's what you want to call it. And that was...
Well, I think at that age we have to call it that.
I think so. Yeah. So that's 40 years ago, So to keep things fresh and introducing new things that we can both be interested in, it's not a struggle, I would say, but when something comes along, you kind of latch onto it. And music's been that for us. Well,
I'm sure it can be a struggle, and I'm sure it can be a great benefit, right?
Absolutely. I shouldn't just point at the negative side. Searching for things to do together is doing something together in of itself, right? So, and like I said, music for us, it was accidental, more or less, if you want to call it that. It wasn't planned. It's just something that kind of rolled into our lap, and we didn't really, we didn't plan on playing anywhere but our house. That was also another accident, but it turned out we love it anymore, and we can't wait for this virus to be done so we can get back out and get a little bit of action like yourself. I'm sure you're just chomping at the bit.
About 16, well, just from shows that I would have put on, we had 16 gigs last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and and as an artist, you rely on that income, and
I'm
gone.
I'm one of the few crazy enough to only be an artist.
There's not many of you left. You're dying for I'm just looking to see if you have any dinosaur scales on you.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
But it's a tough living. It's a rough life. People think it's glamorous now. It's a lot of work, tearing in equipment. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but for the benefit of anybody listening, people say, well, why are you charging so much? You're only coming here, you're playing for 3-4 hours. It's big. Well, there's 4 or 5 hours before all that happens and after. Tearing down, setting up, putting it all back in the truck, and you're going to break something here and there. There's a cost involved there, cable. People have no idea the cost involved in running a band, if that's what you want to call it. But if you're out playing gigs,
people don't realize. I remember we had this. Amanda and I played this one gig, and we had given it was a grand opening of some, I can't even remember the name of it. But it was an opening of some bar. It obviously didn't last. It was a grand opening, and we'd given them a deal, and I forget what we charged them. It wasn't much. It was like $300 for the night, and they fed us and stuff like that too. And it was, and we show up, and I set everything up, and then I go and I'm talking to. So I had booked the gig through email. Okay, so talking to the owner back and forth through email. So we show up, we set everything up, and the manager is there. So the manager comes over while I'm setting up, and she starts asking me some questions. She says, well, when are you guys playing? And I said, well, shouldn't you know? You're the manager. and then she asked how much she had to pay us. I said, well, again, shouldn't you know? You're the manager. So I told her the price, and she was like blown away. She said, that much?
Wow.
And oh yeah. And she said, but you guys are playing for like 3 hours. And she said, well, we're feeding you and you get drinks. And I said, do you realize that? And we had the smallest setup. I had my board, 2 speakers, an amp, 2 microphones.
I remember
my guitar.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Like we're 2 people. I play guitar and sing. She sings. And a music stand.
Pretty much.
Now, so I told her, I said, this minimal setup and lights. We had lights too.
Sure.
I said, this is about $3,000 worth of gear. And that's used old crap.
Right.
Said, so if you were to go to a music store and rent what is set up right here, what I just brought, it's about $250.
Right.
For a rental.
Right.
Now we're going to operate it, which doing sound, you're paying a sound guy, I mean, minimum $100 a night. They laugh at you anything less.
Right.
You know, it's time, right?
Of course.
So I said, rent this stuff, and then pay somebody just to set it up and operate it.
Right.
And now you don't have musicians to play, and you just spent the same amount of money.
Right.
And she felt awful, obviously, but you don't understand.
People don't know, right? And I was as ignorant as anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you would have said to me, you know, if I come to Ryan and the man and I say, listen, how much you want to charge for a backyard party? $500. Holy smoke, you know, but now that I'm in the business,
you're like, well, that's a deal. That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The amount of work, preparation, time, and effort that it takes.
And we're not even talking about the work it takes to actually become a decent enough musician to perform a gig.
The time
Never even mind that.
But in like the time at home you're spending perfecting your craft, or at least not perfecting, but at least making it palatable.
Yeah, not even considering those hundreds, if not thousands, definitely thousands of hours for me.
I think it's just ignorance, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think people just don't realize. You know, if you follow me around on gig day. For me to tear down, load up the truck, get to the gig, take it all out of the truck, put it back in the bar, set it all back up in the bar, play for 4 hours, tear it all back down, put it all back in the truck, bring it home, take it all out of the truck, back in the basement, set it all back up in the basement again. I mean, people just don't realize.
Your 3 hours on stage is a 12-hour day.
It's a 10, 12-hour day, and that's not exaggerating, unless you're cutting corners and doing something. And then if there's any travel time involved, I mean, you know, you go to Ottawa or whatever your case might be.
I don't know how many times we played in Brockville and we're home at 4 a.m. because you're done at 3 or you're done at 2, and then by the time you pack everything up and get it in.
Ottawa is kind of more our we go to Ottawa more than Brockville, but same basic idea, right?
Yeah.
So we go up there, and by the time you tear down and get home, you know, like I said, it's 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, the sun's coming up, you got to get all the equipment out. I mean, just.
And then God forbid you have a real job the next day.
Well, which I kind of do, but you try and work around that. But I mean, no, you know, it's just people don't realize, yes, you know, $300, $500, $600 is a lot of money. Money doesn't come easily, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And if you ever try and do it yourself, you'll definitely have a better appreciation for it. It's not an easy way to make money.
Yeah, it definitely has to be put into perspective.
Glamorous. It's not.
No, we don't do this. We don't play music to make money.
No. Dear Lord.
If anything, you barely make enough money to replace the gear that you break. Like you said.
Exactly. And I've broken some gear too.
Speaking of barely making enough money to replace things that break, you also manage property.
I'm getting out of that, but yes.
How is that? How is dealing? So I guess let me unpackage that. How is that? So I guess in a nutshell, is it worth it? Is it worth it to deal with people on a regular basis? It's kind of a weird thing to ask, but is it?
It's different. Every situation is different. So I mean, as a landlord, I mean, it's like a lot of things. It was easier to make money back in the day before it got overregulated, like everything else, right? Regulation brings struggles. Struggles bring lack of funds. So, but I find I owned 4 places, or 4 doors. So I had a duplex, which is 1 place, but 2 rentals. But I had 4 rentals at one point. And I find there's 2 types of tenants, really. And it's all about getting the right tenants. Property management is simple and easy if you get the right tenants. If you don't, though,
kind of like a dog's life. It's either amazing or shit.
Oh man, it just seems to be that way. I don't know why that is. I mean, There's no science behind that to prove it, but it just seems to be the way. And I've hit both ends of that. I've had fabulous people. You were actually one of them. I don't know if you remember.
My dog chewed a hole in the wall, and I was still up at the top. Great.
I've had a lot worse than that. But I mean, they're essentially, so your two types of tenants are essentially this, and I separate them in age groups. So older tenants, like close to retirement age. I'm talking like older. Will always pay their. Take care of your place. They're responsible, but they will call you for every single little thing that has to be done. They're going to call you. You need a light bulb, they're going to call you. Whereas the younger generation, you're going to eat a month's rent somewhere, here and there, but they never call. They don't care if you come over and fix a light bulb. They'll do it themselves, or, so basically it depends what you want. If you want to be left alone at home, you don't want to be the hands-on landlord, then you get young tenants, and when they don't pay the rent for a month, you eat that and put it away. You put some money away for a rainy day to cover that, and then you're good. But if you go in with your eyes open, you're expecting that, then it's not a shock, and you're ready for it, and it's just part of the game. There's losses in every job you do, and landlords are the same. You're going to lose rent. That's just what it is. Mm-hmm. The older people, like I said, are more responsible. They take care of your place. They don't ever call you. So it depends which way you want to go on that.
Is there anything to be said about not taking things or taking things personally?
How do you mean?
When something does happen to a property, or when there is something going.
Yeah, again.
I mean, you have to kind of. I would assume it's easy to feel like it's a personal.
Yeah, it wasn't for me. So when I got into it, I really sat down and thought about it a bit, and I got the mindset that, again, not only are you going to lose some rent once in a while, because that is going to happen, you're going to have some damages. That's also going to happen. Accidents happen. Carelessness happens all the time.
So you went into it with that, okay, this is strictly a business. There's going to be gains. There's going to be losses. There's going to be issues. It's nothing personal.
That's right. So you walk in, you look around, you assess, okay, I get a $1,500 renovation here to tidy the place up and get it around. So you take it out of your little kitty, pay for the renovation, you start all over and go about it again. But, I mean, it can be financially rewarding to a point. I mean, having someone to pay for a house for you is definitely a plus. But getting to that point is not cheap. Rentals, typically you got to put at least 20% down. So, that's 20 grand on every 100,000. And 20 grand's a lot of money. If you're buying a $200,000 house, by the time you buy it, it's 40 grand plus lawyer's fees. There's everything creeps in. You're looking at $45,000 or $50,000 to buy a home as a rental.
That's a truck.
That's a truck. Trucks are getting expensive. That's not quite a truck anymore.
That's almost a truck.
It's almost a truck.
But no,
saving money for a rental is a big step, because you don't want to put 50 grand into a house and have someone tear it apart on you. Mm-hmm. So there's a fear. So you got to be willing, and you got to be a little bit of a gambler. And it paid off for me. I had one tenant was a little bit crazy, and I'm not just making that up. I can prove that. But anyways, long story there. We won't go into that.
We'll leave that for the courts.
We'll leave that for the courts. No, but I'd never gotten to the point where I had to sue anybody or threaten anybody. I did lose a month's rent here and there, but I was ready for that, and I have no real regrets. I'm getting out of that business at the moment.
Now, did you ever operate with a lease, or did you ever? Did you find contracts made a difference? I gave the tenant the option. Okay. And the reason I did that is simple: is that I don't want anyone in my home that I have to force to stay there. If you don't want to be in my place, I want it easy for the both of us to get you out of there. Mm-hmm. And it may be beneficial to me in some cases not to have a lease. Mm-hmm. So I really left it up to the tenant. I gave them choice rather, that if you want a lease, you can have one. If you want that security, but I will hold you to it. Once you make up your mind, sign that lease. Don't come to me in 6 months and say, "Let's find another place." That's not happening. Yeah, we had a deal now, and you put your word on the line, and I'm going to hold you to your word. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I gave you the option of freedom, and you didn't take it. Now, did you find, are there a difference between tenants who sign a lease and don't?
Yes, you can almost tell. I got to the point at the end where I can almost tell who's going to ask for a lease and who wasn't. I wasn't always right on that. It's guesswork, but yes, I find, and this is not a shot or criticism of anybody, but I found younger people didn't care about the lease as much, and the older people wanted the security. And I just think that's an age thing anyways. I think as you get older, you want more security in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Younger people are more carefree and, willing to live, shoot from the hip and live in the moment. I think that's just an age thing. And usually when the younger people come in, I give them the option. They says, well, we don't know where we're going to be in a year. I don't care. It's fine. Just let me know what you want. Right. And that's usually what it was. As soon as I seen somebody, and I'll say 30 for an age, below 30, let's say, it was almost a guaranteed they didn't want
Oh, I'm old in this.
You're getting there.
I'm in the old group.
You're not quite there, but you're approaching. But yeah, I find the younger crowd were a little more flippant, and not really, a little more carefree. Didn't care about lease as much. I knew if I got a retired.
Now, did you find there was a difference in like how well they kept the place, or
again? I think that's a pretty. I've been surprised on both ends of that. I was about to say that age also plays a part in that, and that the younger crowd, don't quite take care of the place that as an older crowd will be. I was about to say that, but I have a couple instances I can remember that were on both ends of that I had a couple older people that really didn't take much care of it, and I also had some younger folks that were really incredibly good tenants. That way.
Well, I mean, everybody should know by now that we can't paint any. We can't just paint anything one color, right? We can't just say, "Oh, all old people do this. Over the age of 50, you're going to do this."
Exactly.
Like, no, it's
tenants are, people, because you're dealing with people. People are hit and miss. And you think you can judge a person walking up to you, you can't. You might be right some of the time, or you're going to be wrong some place. I've got one tenant right now. I've got one place left. He's been there 8 years, and in 8 years, he's not called me once for a repair, for a question, for anything. He moved in on a day, and I see him once a year. He drops checks off at my house every January, and that's the only time I ever.
That's the dream.
That is the Cadillac. And I mean, I don't expect that, and I've offered. Well, I used to offer. I quit offering after the first or second year. If you need something, call me. I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
He's never called me, not once. Pays his rent, never late, always on time, polite, well spoken, just the best tenant.
Now, has any of that Newfie acceptance, general goodwill, has that served you well dealing with people? Even us crass Ontarians?
Ontario's been good to me. I can't really shit on it. So, I mean, every place you go, have your deviants. So,
well, I'm obviously joking.
I know, I clearly know you. But I'm just to clear the point that, I mean, Newfoundlanders have or at least perceived as being laid back and easygoing, and I believe that to be true.
And somehow easygoing and also very frank at the same time.
Yeah, well, there's a way you can be honest without being ignorant.
Yeah,
so you can let a person know politely.
Yeah. The saying goes, "Don't be a dick."
Even using humor. Stuff like Newfoundlanders are typically very funny people, so the better you are dealing with people and situations, that definitely serves well for a landlord, right? I mean, not having to yell and scream at somebody is always, you don't want to.
Yeah, being able to communicate and diffuse a situation.
Yeah, and that's going to happen. That's definitely going to happen. I've run into it a couple times, and yes, to answer your question in a sentence, that I think being from the East Coast helped deal with some of the Ontarian.
Yeah, at least that not
yes.
In the taking things not too personally,
right,
and
that's right.
Okay, it is
thick skin. Let's
it
call
is
it
what
that.
it is.
Yeah, letting things roll off your back, because I mean, people are going to say and do things in the heat of the moment that they don't really mean, and that happens all the time. And landlording is no different than anything else.
I've kind of noticed that a little bit in my business, in teaching, where at first we used to, when I took over the place, this system had students in contracts, and that's why I was asking about the lease, and if you had noticed the difference, because I see kind of a parallel where I had these people were under contract, right, and for cancellation, so if they didn't cancel in time, they owed for a lesson, and they didn't give a shit. They didn't care.
Yeah,
and it came to a point where, just like you said, are you going to take somebody to court for 1 month's rent? Is it worth it? And to me, 1 month's worth of guitar lessons is much less than a month's worth of rent.
Right.
So am I going to take somebody to court for
it's all about feasibility, right? I mean, practicality.
If it costs me $100 to know I can't trust this person anymore,
right,
then it's worth $100.
So be it. That's
then,
right. Swallow that, move on, and now you know. Lesson learned.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
So we completely abolished the contracts. They didn't make a difference anyway. I was never going to use it.
I mean, right? Because you have a business and you want some stability, and so contracts give you stability, of course. But only if the contracts work for you. So if you insist on a contract and you lose your customer because of it, then it moots itself. It kind of negates itself. The contract is supposed to hold the customer here, but it kicked them out at the door and didn't get her in the first place. So if it's not working, you got to look at the practicality of it. And business, that business plan is not going to work for you. So I like what you've done here. I like your approach. I think it's the only real approach. If you were living in Toronto, Montreal, and you had 4,000 people knocking on your door to get in, then you offer contracts so you can pick and choose, and you got your stability. Unfortunately, that's not the case in Cornwall. We don't have that population base to run that way. But if you could pick and choose, if you had people knocking on your door, then you can be a little more stricter with. But when you scramble for a living, you kind of got to be open-minded and roll with the punches. For sure. Yeah.
That's putting it lightly. Yeah, for sure. Especially through these last couple closures.
No kidding. Man, yeah. I don't envy you guys.
Yeah, I mean, just being 6 feet away from another human being, without masks on and having a conversation, seeing a physical person. You're not on my TV screen. This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. We don't get to see it much anymore. Yeah, face. Even your face.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, it's bad and I'm appreciating this.
Tough times.
So, in the laundry list of things that you occupy your time with, I think the last thing on my list of things that I wanted to discuss is dog breeding.
Yeah.
Of all of the hats.
That was also a mistake. It seems everything we've done...
just a life of happy mistakes.
It came about... I'm an opportunist. I don't look for things most of the time, but if they happen across, I can usually judge it and look at it and say, there's an opportunity here. Dog breeding, how that happened was I bought a Newfoundland dog. I've wanted a Newfoundland dog since I was a kid. I don't know if it's because I'm from Newfoundland. It's mainly because I love the breed. I love everything about the breed. They are gentle. They're probably the most friendly dog you could ever possibly buy. They're quiet, well-behaved, intelligent, and they're gorgeous. I just love everything about the dog. My wife, unfortunately, is not a dog person, or at least wasn't. So it seems everything has a story. But so, anyways, I kept planting seeds over the years. I kept telling her, I'm buying a Newfoundland dog. She said, no, you're not. It's going to happen. So I'm pre-warning you. It's going to happen. No, it's not. You better not. So anyway, this went on for a couple of years. So finally, I worked up the nerve to go get a dog without telling her. Well, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is permission at my house. And it's a formula that's not for everybody, but it seems to keep us married and happy. So, so anyways, I researched it. I found a breeder online, contacted her, but she had 3 females that got pregnant at the same time. And one was unexpected. She didn't know about it, and she ended up with 30 puppies at the same time. 10, each dog had 10.
Wow.
And so I contacted her when she only had 4 or 6 or 7 left. And so she was getting anxious to get rid of them because it's a lot of work. Something else people don't realize. But so anyways, I called her, contacted her, and I said, listen, I was struggling that time between jobs. So I said, I can't really afford what you're asking, but here's what I can afford. And she said, you know what? Come take your dog. I just need to get rid of these. So I went and got, and she is the most beautiful dog in the world. And her bloodlines are impeccable. Her father was an Ontario champion. So, which I didn't know at the time. I didn't buy the dog for that reason. I didn't buy the dog doing the breeding. I bought the dog because I wanted a pet, and she was a pet. But because of her father bloodline, the breeder was wondering if I was interested in breeding her because she was the last intact female of that bloodline at the time. This was 2 years later now. She contacted me, and I said, no, I'm not into breeding. No, it's not my thing. I just want a pet. I don't want to, But she contacted me 2 or 3 times, and at the end I said, why not? Let's try it. So, well, once you have puppies in the house, that changes everything. You get 4 or 5 puppies running around the house, and Newfoundland dogs as puppies are, If that don't make your heart melt, you don't have one. You know what I mean? It's I love puppies, and especially. And so anyway, so we kind of got into that by mistake, and that kind of took off on its course on its own. So we bred 3 times. Like we don't breed for profit. I mean, even though we sell the dogs for profit, that's not why we did it. Mm-hmm. That's just a benefit of what happened. We bred to keep the bloodline going for our breeder in the first place. That's why we did it first. And second place, we did it because we loved it so much the first time. Mm-hmm. So we bought another female, and we haven't had as much love with her. And we're going to retire her before she has her first litter, I think. She's 5 now. I might take one more stab at it with her maybe this year. We'll see. And if it works out good, and if not, then we're getting out of the breeding business as well. As you get older, you take your fires out of the iron a little bit, and you kind of learn to lean back and relax a little bit. Time is not easy to come by. So
how many? So how long have you been? How long did you do the breeding, and how many?
Well, I suppose technically we're still doing it. Like we're registered with the oh my God, I can't remember the agency now. For the life of me, I can't remember. But you have to be a registered breeder. You have to pay and whatever. And so we have our papers, breeding papers. We're registered. So we're still technically breeders. But until you breed, well, you're not really a breeder.
Yeah. How many puppies are hanging out?
Right.
Yeah.
So we bred 3 times with the one. She's retired. She's 10 now, and we have another female 5. They said we may take 1 or 2 more goals at it, but after that, we're gonna get out of the breeding business. And that's mainly because of music. We have 300 pounds of dog in the house, and getting someone to...
And that's what, just 2?
That's 2. 2 dogs. And so to get someone to watch that every time you go for a gig, like if you had to go to Toronto or Cambridge or Newfoundland for a show or 2, you got to rely on family, friends, whatever, or it starts getting pricey and expensive. So,
we just had to put our dog down.
I didn't know that.
Oh, Grizzly.
Oh, I didn't know Grizz.
Had to put him down. Lyme disease.
Oh yes, terrible.
It'll be a year in April.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Wow. And the only good thing about it is we can leave.
Yes.
Put an extra bowl of water down for the cats.
Yes.
And we can fuck off.
Yes. Can
be gone 2 days if there's enough food for them. They got clean litter. They got food on the floor. They are not going to be emotionally scarred that I'm not there. At all. Yeah. No, not worried.
Where dogs are children.
Exactly. That cat is not having PTSD. No.
Dogs are a lot of responsibility. It really ties you to the house. If you're a musician, if you're a traveling musician, then at some point the dogs are going to be a hindrance in that way. I think it's still worth it. I still love having dogs, even though it costs me some heartache and some grief sometimes.
We've been flirting with the idea again.
Yeah.
We see the odd puppy and it...
We feel these might be our last 2 dogs for a while, if we're still playing music and traveling, because it's getting to be more and more.
Or you'll need a camper in the back of the truck to take the dogs with you.
Yeah, pretty much can say, or we're taking with us. And you can't really, like I said, 300 pounds of dog if you're standing at a motel or
small house trailer you can borrow.
Yeah, I might take you up on that. That's not out of the question. But no, it's hard, even traveling with the dogs, you got to stop, feed them, potties, so it slows you down. So yeah, I think the dog breeding is going to be a pass eventually.
Now, all of these things that you've worked on, that you've done, that you're still doing right now, that you dabble in, I think you said so far you took 1 online course for $60.
Yes. Yes, that's it. Yes. Yeah.
So,
I'm.
Would this be possible 50 years ago?
No, I really don't think so. I think the internet, online, the accessibility to everything is all the difference. I don't think I would have done maybe any of these things, except possibly landlording. Where onlining doesn't apply to that, but I did educate myself online to a point. I read and read and read and see what other people were going through, and so I learned what to look for, what to do. So even that, I don't, today's day and age, I don't think there's anything not touched by the internet. Really,
there's there's
and 50, even 30 years ago, I don't know if all these things were possible.
Yeah, the only excuse for ignorance is laziness, right?
Yes, and that is
if it's something you want to know.
That's a fair point.
There's no reason.
There's no reason not to know it. I mean, sometimes it's a struggle to find it, but if you look long enough, if you're resourceful, and I can be resourceful, And if that don't work, I resort to bribing. So, one way or the other.
Well, in Ontario, we have all this pre-made packaged food and everything.
Right.
You don't got to go fishing for supper. You got to put all that resourcefulness somewhere else. Right?
There's nothing wrong with prepackaged food, too. That's another thing. Cooking, that's also a thing. So, yeah. But internet, definitely. Especially in the music section and the photography section of things. Not so much the dog breeding, not so much although
you get more opinions and more kind of, it opens up conversations that you might not normally have.
It does.
Right? You can talk to different breeders.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And not only that, disease and care and things you might run into. We didn't realize, that after 2 weeks, the mother is essentially done with the puppies. We thought they nursed for 6 weeks. Like, the puppy, most cases, in 2 weeks, the puppies have very, very sharp teeth and claws. Okay. And the mom's belly looked like a piece of hamburger after 2 weeks. It's not pretty, and you kind of feel bad, but it is a part of motherhood for animals. Even though, you look and you kind of reflect, you kind of project that on yourself. And think, geez, that would be awful, but for a dog, though, that's expected. That's what they know and do and expect, and instinct. And even though it's not pretty, that's just the way it is. If I had asked my vet about breeding, what his opinion on it. He said, well, my brother's a breeder, and he said, really? He says, without breeders, we wouldn't have dogs, would we? I said, well, that's a fair point. He said, yeah. He said, breeding is not always pretty. There's a downside to it, but there's definitely a plus side to it. It's like every other venture. You can pick it apart and find some negatives, and you can also praise it to high hell and make it the best thing that's ever happened, right? So it depends on your mindset, really, your approach.
Okay, so what happens between week 2 and week 6? Because puppies usually aren't sold until at least, 6 or 8 weeks?
8 weeks.
8 weeks,
yeah. 6 to 8. Yeah. We were 7 weeks.
Okay.
Right in the middle. It's basically a bone formation and maturity. So,
after the 2 weeks, they're moved on to food, solid food.
Yeah. Mushy food.
Because these are things I don't realize either. Yeah. I've only had a puppy from 8 weeks or 6 weeks or so.
So the eyes open at about 10 days or so, 10 days or 2 weeks, and at that point they become independent more and more and more each day. You can see a daily difference. And as ridiculous as this sounds, in 7 weeks they go from being a puppy to a dog. And I know at 7 weeks they're still a puppy. I mean, I understand what I'm saying there, but it's just to make the point that the change you see in an animal in 6 weeks.
Just the independence, right? And the capability, you mean?
Yeah, because at day one, a Newfoundland dog is a big dog. So at day one, the puppy will fit in the palm of your hand. At 6 weeks, it's 50 pounds. It's a dog. It's a dog. Not all. Some are 30 pounds to run. Some are 60 pounds. But let's say 40, 50 pounds.
But still, that's a big Jack Russell Terrier.
So, to see it happen. So at 6 weeks, they're not quite independent, but they're independent of their mom. They probably couldn't forage and feed themselves. They need help to be fed and stuff. But they're a dog. And so, there's a lot. And we learned a lot of that online before we got to that point. There were no surprises by the time we got there. Put it that way. There are not many anyways. So that's where your online, your internet, dog breeding was possible 50 years ago, obviously, because, dogs do it naturally anyways.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty easy. You put a male and female together, it'll happen.
You say that.
But it's dealing with...
It's not always that easy, because we have a female now and we had a male, and after 4 attempts, 0 puppies.
Okay.
So you would think that it's simple, because dogs do what dogs do. Well, dogs also shoot blanks. They also have inexperience and have to figure things out. There's a whole multitude of things that roll in. So you do artificial insemination. That's a thing. You can do that. I haven't. My breeder friend that I deal with has a lot. She's been doing it for almost 30 years. So she's seen and come across everything. So she was also a very good source of information and reliability for us. So, and
again, that connection was forged because of the internet.
It was absolutely found on the internet, 100%. Yeah. So just about everything I do, as far as hobby or anything I put time into, I start on the internet. I really do. I research. I read. I'm a reader. I'm that guy. So I look into everything. I try not to be surprised with anything. although it doesn't always work. Yeah. I didn't know I was getting into with music, but I've got friends named Ryan that I can call and rely on. I got a lot of friends in the music business that helps.
There's a lot to be said about knowing or learning how to learn.
Yes.
That's something.
Learning is a skill itself.
It is. And I'm happily seeing this focus shifting in schools.
Yes.
And just in the overall mentality.
Yeah, agree.
Where I don't care if you know the answer.
Right.
I care if you know how to get the answer.
Right. You might get the wrong one, but do you know how to get it?
Do you know how to get it? Yeah, you might not know it right now.
Right.
But don't waste your time guessing.
Right.
Because you've got endless resources.
Right. Learning to learn. I mean, I'm more of a short-term learner. I won't focus for, I'm not going to university and learning for 4 years. That's not my bag, but otherwise I'd be educated. But I'm more of I'll read something for a day or two or a week, learn a skill, and then kind of tweak it.
Yeah, I kind of think I'm sort of the same way. I can get to about 50% of knowledge base in something
I'd say
fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And then just enough to either start to know if this is something I want to really do myself, or at least enough to know that when I hire somebody to know if they're bullshitting me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's pretty much, so we're very similar. That's right about where I am. That's the perfect explanation of how I see it. Give me that 50% and I'll look at it and go, I don't know. I don't think this is so.
But you get 50% knowledge in enough different industries.
Right.
Now that is very unique.
It can be.
Because it's not to say, now obviously these are, I don't know the exact connection you can do breeding, property management, and music with.
Yeah,
you can get,
but I bet there's something in there somewhere.
Yeah, some dog concerts and I don't know what's.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe maybe use the dogs as a mascot for the band or something. And I'll drag them around the country with you or something. I don't know, but. No, but I mean, it's the internet is good and learning is, I try and keep my eyes open for opportunities. I'm not an opportunist. My wife's very much the opposite. I mean, you couldn't find more polar opposites than her and I believe. I mean, she's, she lives with her hand on the panic button, 3 inches, that's how she lives her life. One hand 3 inches above the panic button, whereas, everything rolls off my back and nothing really bothers me unless,
Now, do you need that? You need somebody to keep you grounded in reality? Has that remembering there's the panic button there, has that reminder been
I don't
useful?
know if I need it, but if I'm being honest, I think it's a good thing. in my house.
Somebody's got to think of the consequences,
you
right?
have salt, you have pepper. You kind of need a little bit of both. Even though they're opposite, they work well together, and that's kind of how we are,
It's been more complementary than it has been detrimental.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody has moments of disagreement. And we'd be
lying if we said we didn't.
We'd be lying if we didn't. But if you can embrace your differences and make them work, and that's what we've done, it doesn't get in the way. Mm-hmm. It doesn't slow us down or get in the way or create any animosity in anything we've done that I can think of. At least not in our adult life. Teenage years, I'm going to kind of put that aside. That's a different world. And that's so long ago, I don't really remember anyways.
If we were judged for the entirety of our lives on our teenage years...
Thank God that doesn't always happen. I mean, I feel... that's interesting you say that, because I feel we've moved away. We moved away in 89, so 31 years ago. But I feel people still see us from when we left. The vision they have of us when we left, because they knew us as kids, whatever, that's how they see us and treat us now. That's how they see us, and I'm not the person I was at 20.
I'm not the person I was at 20.
I'm nothing close to the person I was at 20, and so maturity and stuff, some people get it early, some people get it late, and things like that, all the good stuff that comes with it. But it's funny you say that, because we shouldn't be judged by what we do as teenagers, or you wouldn't think so, but I think that's a thing. I think that does happen in a case like where we've moved away and we have no everyday connection with people.
Yeah. Now that's a kind of unique.
It is a different
because they have this still shot.
That's right.
They have this.
This is how we saw you when you left, and that's the last image we have of you.
In the same way that it's hard for me to imagine how you were as a teenager.
Yeah, if you met me as a teenager, you'd be going, no, not the same guy. No, that's not the guy I know. No, you know.
No.
So, but
hell, at one point you were an authority figure.
well, yeah, not quite. But yeah, no, but I mean, you know, you move up, you move on, right? So no, but we moved, and Ontario's been good to us. I love Cornwall. It's been really good to us. I've heard a lot of negativity from people that were born and raised there, and I don't get it. Cornwall's got, I mean, it's not Montreal, it's not Ottawa, but that's why I like it. You know, because had I wanted Toronto, I would have moved to Toronto. Right?
Yeah, because you can drive for 15 minutes and be in a forest.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and the proximity of Cornwall to everything, you know, you got Montreal, Ottawa, you get the States, you got everything you need within, you know, a drive. You can go for a Sunday drive and get anything, you know, and I love the river. I love water. I was born on the water, so I mean, I think that's a little comfort factor for me, and I think that's one of the reasons I stayed here, is that river's there, and I love water. And I think that's probably the biggest reason we stayed. I know it kind of sounds a little quirky, but I think had there been no river, I don't know if I'd have settled here.
I couldn't, I mean...
You can't really relate because...
Well, I was actually going to say I kind of can.
Okay.
I can't... if I think about living somewhere else, it would need to be by water. Like, I'm so used to it.
Okay, that makes sense, sure.
Now, I mean, my water that I lived by wasn't the ocean.
Oh, it was water.
But it's water.
Still, yeah,
water is water.
Yeah.
I remember, like, my entire childhood was just walking the banks of the St. Lawrence, up and down.
And it's funny you said it, because me too. And when that's no longer there, you notice it. You really do.
Yeah.
Because I lived in places before with
you
no
gotta
water.
poke dead eels and skip rocks and go skin diving and find weird stuff.
Yeah.
You gotta do that.
That's a real thing. And you know, when something you've lived by and with for all your life at that time, when that's not there anymore, it's very noticeable. And culture shock is a real thing. And whatever you can get to lessen that, you know, culture shock would have been worse had there been no water. You know what I mean? That was one little aspect of comfort.
Yeah,
you know, from home that I could, you know, look at the window and see. I live not far from the water, so you look at the window, see the river. And, you know, that helps. You know, I can walk out the door, and in 3.5 minutes, I could be, like I said, down on the banks of St. Lawrence.
Yeah, sitting on a rock by the water, taking a picture of a bird.
Yeah, and I love nature. I love it outside. I absolutely love it, and that river is a godsend. Cornwall has a lot to offer. It's treated me very well. I've done well. I've been working my entire life. I've not been out of work for more than I don't know if I've been out of work, actually, now I think about it. I'm trying to think. There might have been a week transition from one job to the other, maybe. Well, I don't even think there was that. But anyways, it's been good to me. I love Cornwall. I owe a lot to it.
I have a very similar feeling. There's I hear so much of the negativity, and you know, I know, you hear people talk, and it's I can't really see any of it. Yeah. I can't see the any of the negative. I mean, it's a small place, taxes are pretty good. Housing is pretty good.
Small town Canada.
There's lots of resources.
You don't expect no surprises. Crime rate is relatively low. I mean, you know, every town has crime. I don't care if it's a small town or a big town, you get crime. But I hear people talking, and you know, I work with there's 300 people at work. And I work with a lot of them, and a lot of them are locals, and I just find they focus on the negative side of things, and I don't know why that is. You know, can you not see the river for what it is instead of the smell of Domtar instead,
now,
or whatever the case might be?
But there's this very depressing human reality that outrage is attractive.
Yeah, we're getting into psychology now because that's a whole new talk. But you know what? You're right. You're 100%
you work
right.
at a plant. You know more about psychology than
not by choice.
Exactly, not by choice.
Baptismal fire, but yeah, no, you're right. That outrage is all the rage.
I mean, too many people find complaining as a source of attention.
Yeah,
it's easier.
It's their go-to reaction for everything, and then without thinking, it becomes your one trait that stands out the most. And I don't know about everybody else, but I mean, I don't want to be known for negativity. I mean, that's not who I am. But we see a lot of it at work. I see a lot of it in the music business. I see a lot of wherever I go.
Now, I like to be optimistic, and I just think I like to tell myself that maybe these super negative people just haven't taken the time. Maybe they just don't have the time to look and say, hey, what am I actually doing? Why am I so... Like, I want to believe...
I don't think it's time as much as awareness. I think everybody's got the time. I just think most people aren't even aware till someone points it out that, man, you're like the most negative. And I've told people, I said, you can look at this a different way. You don't have to be, you don't have to put water on the fire every time you open your mouth. I mean...
Yeah. Yeah. I sneezed 3 times in a row. My wife says I'm getting sick.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah, shut up. I didn't ask.
No, I'm fine.
No, it's all about approach, right? It's all about mindset. It's about, I think it's just the way, my personal beliefs. I want myself and everybody around me to be happy. I want people to have a good time. I don't want to bring people down. I think negativity is a cancer. I think it's... but you're right. It's a culture anymore. Mm-hmm. It seems to be a culture. I don't know. Maybe that's born of the internet. I don't know where it came from or how it happened, but it's a real thing.
Now, from what I gather in my very limited understanding of computer science and the algorithms that manage Facebook and all of this, is that in its conception, Facebook, YouTube, whatever social media, Twitter we're talking about, in when they were first created, the algorithms were set up in chronological order. So when you'd look at your news feed, you would see, okay, this happened now, this happened 5 minutes ago, and so on and so forth. And at some point, they decided that, well, if something really interesting happened, and you didn't sign on in that 10 minutes, and then 5 other things happened, you might not see that super interesting thing.
Right.
So now I'm kind of making this nice for them, right? I'm assuming, I'm being optimistic, assuming none of it comes from a place of malice, right? So then they say, well, okay, great. So what do we do? Well, if a lot of people liked something, or if a lot of people commented on something, we should maybe bring that up because it's more popular. And that decision to take what was most liked and most commented on and put that on the top and then sprinkle in chronologically, I honestly think that is the entire problem and the cause of almost all of this negativity.
Yeah, I never really thought of it in that context, but yeah, you know what? That's a very fair point.
It probably came from an innocent place.
Most likely,
where,
not
where I don't want to miss your anniversary and wish you happy anniversary.
Right.
But it turns out that algorithms don't care whether we're happy or angry.
Right.
They care if we're engaged.
Yeah, exactly.
So they don't, it's funny, they don't use the term like or sad face or I gave it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. They use interactions.
Right.
Right. It's very neutral. It sounds very, very tame.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point and a fair assessment.
But when you get, 1,000 angry face interactions,
right,
now that's the most popular thing that I'm going to see.
Right.
And it just turns out that humans really are attracted to suffering. I mean, look at every movie, look at every story.
Yeah,
we like
tragedy is sexy. I mean,
it sells.
It's it's true. It's horrible, but you're right. I mean, happiness is boring for a lot of people. Take a movie happy endings. I like happy endings, but I mean, tragedy. There's definitely sells.
Happy endings, but all of the trials and tribulations make you feel really good about your life.
Yes, that's right. It's again. I just think the internet has opened up a whole new avenue for people to express themselves, and not everybody are nice people. So,
see, I think I just like to hope that it's not a human problem, and that it's a technology.
I love
problem.
Your optimism. I'm not sure I share it in this case. But
I want it so badly to be a technology problem because we can fix technology.
As do I.
We can't
Yet here we are.
Well, we can fix humans, but we're not going to get into that just yet.
Oh Lord. Yeah. No. Yeah, but you're right. I'd love it to be a mechanical problem. That can be have a fix applied to.
Yes, just realign some incentives.
I'd love to know. I'd love to be able to put my faith in humanity like that. Unfortunately, without being too negative, I work with a lot of people. I'm a supervisor, so I see a lot of ugliness. Not all. There's a lot. I know a lot of really good people, but it does seem today, as opposed to 30 years ago, that you're right. That it seems outrage and negativity and tragedy just seems to be people aiming for that kind of thing anymore. More and more.
Being offended is cool now.
I don't get that though.
I
don't get that. You're right, and I'm not arguing. I've seen it, and I'm going. What is
yes,
that?
There are a lot of things that are offensive, and there are a lot of shitty people doing shitty things that should be called out for it. But it seems like being offended or acting like you're a victim is just way too sexy anymore.
I don't know.
It's not. There has to be some type of a balance. Right?
I don't think we found it yet, but I agree 100% that at some point something's going to break. And it's like anything else. You take it too far, and you're going to get pushback. And I think it hasn't reached that point yet where there's pushback. I think at some point in the future that people can say, okay, whoa there, slow down a little bit, and this is no longer acceptable. But you're right.
What I'm interested to see is if all of these social media companies like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all of these, I'm kind of curious as to how much actual control they have over their algorithms and how the algorithms act and how news feeds and how recommendations are actually funneled. YouTube has more information than any human being can regulate. Everything is being regulated by computer algorithms.
That's definitely true.
There are more tweets than...
It's true. I mean, I don't know a lot about AI, better algorithms. I know what they are, what they do. I know what they're used for in some cases. I've run into them a few times where we've done a cover song by certain bands. We put it on YouTube. The algorithm, recognizes the song.
Mm-hmm.
Realize we don't have permissions built into that algorithm and therefore shuts it down and mutes all or part of the song.
But from my understanding, you're not the only one who doesn't understand it.
Yeah, no.
YouTube doesn't.
Apparently they don't know what they got going on themselves. So
apparently
it's gotten
not.
bigger than they thought, and I don't think they were ready and have the right checks and measures in place.
I don't think any human is. I mean, the internet is bigger than any human can control.
It's massive.
I mean, we've created systems that are impossible for one person to understand.
Definitely.
And then we're wondering why we can't control them.
I don't think we wonder. I think we know. I think it's just when you come to a realization that, oh crap, this is far bigger than I had thought and originally expected. Without the internet, where would we be though? Some people would argue that it was better before the internet. It's like anything. There are some parts that was better before the internet. There was. Yeah. And the same can be said for after the fact, right?
I mean, gardening is better than, McDonald's. But at the end of the day, I can't spend all of my time in a garden. So is my life better because I can grab McDonald's and I don't have to spend it in the garden?
Right. We could debate this until the end of time.
There's no right answer.
That's right. There's no right answer. Right. Every individual is different. So, I mean,
And I mean, this is a perfect segue because there is no right answer. This is a perfect segue to what is the point of this? What is the point of this? Rich, what is the meaning of life?
Oh, Jesus.
To you, what is the meaning of this? What are we here for?
To me, it's all about, cutting out your own little corner and being happy. Just being, are you okay with what's going on? Do you have friends and family you can rely on? Happiness. What makes you happy? Do that. To me, if you've lived a life where, I won't say no regrets. Everybody has regrets, but you keep your regrets limited and you keep your happy moments to the forefront. I think then you're on the right track, and there's not much more you can ask other than that. To me, I mean, that's just my take on things. But I mean, everybody might be out there saying, that's not even close. But that's how I see it. That's how I want it. I want it trouble-free, no regrets, happiness, and lots of music, and the occasional movie on a Friday night. Saturday. But yeah, but that's happiness, right? I mean, just to me, that's meaning of life, is doing what you like as much as you can.
Well, Rich, I can't think of a better way to end it than that sentiment.
There you go.
The meaning of life is happiness. I'm on board with it.
There you go.
There.
All right.
Be content with where we are. And
beautiful.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and wasting all of this time with me.
Hey, man, I really appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, anytime, right? We go way back. You can call me anytime.
Yes, sir.
Cool, man.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, hit like and subscribe to this channel. If you'd like to connect with me personally, look for Ryan O'Neill on Facebook or Twitter. Hope to see you next time.